Chosen one. Have you ever stopped to notice that there is something inside you that simply refuses to accept a mediocre life? That no matter how many times your finances got tight, how many times the bills arrived before the paycheck, how many times someone looked at you with that pitying smile thinking you were dreaming too big, even so, something in you kept burning? That is not stubbornness. That is not delusion. That is a sign. And today I need you to understand that sign with all the clarity it deserves, because it is speaking directly about the place you are heading. Chosen one, I need you to listen to this with your full attention. The persistence you carry was not born from you. It was deposited in you. There is an enormous difference between a person who tries because they have no other option and a person who persists because they were anointed for a purpose greater than the environment they currently occupy. And you belong to the second group. You always have. The problem is that the world around you spent so much time trying to convince you otherwise that at certain moments you almost believed that lie. But look at what is remarkable. Even in the moments when doubt tried to swallow you, you did not stop. You may have slowed down. You may have cried in the dark, questioned things in silence, looked at your bank statement and felt that sting in your chest. But you did not stop. And do you know what that means spiritually? It means the purpose is greater than your own will. Because when human will would have given up, something deeper kept pushing you forward. That has a name. It is called a calling. It is called a financial destiny sealed before you even understood the magnitude of what was being reserved for you. Let me tell you something that very few channels have the courage to say with this level of clarity. Not everyone around you was programmed for abundance. That is not judgment. That is discernment. There are people who were built for a life of conformity, and they are exactly where they are supposed to be. The problem is when those people try to use their conformity as a measuring stick for your potential. When they look at your persistence and say, "Stop that, you are dreaming too big," what they are actually doing is projecting their own limitations onto your path, and you must never, not for a single moment, accept someone else's limitation as the ceiling of your life. There is a sign that precedes every great financial turnaround, and that sign is rarely visible in the bank statement before it is felt in the spirit. Before the money arrives, something shifts in your posture. Before prosperity manifests in the physical world, it is already consolidated in the spiritual world. And the way you recognize that you are in this process is not through the balance you have right now. It is through the intensity with which you refuse to accept that balance as your final sentence. When you look at your current situation and feel that it is not everything there is for you, that there is more, that there is so much more, that is not arrogance. That is prophecy. That is your spirit recognizing a territory that has not yet been claimed physically, but is already guaranteed in the spiritual realm. The millionaires you admire today did not get there because the path was easy. They got there because at some point in their lives, when everything indicated they should stop, they felt exactly what you are feeling right now. That stopping would be a betrayal of their purpose. And that feeling, that internal refusal to settle for less, that fire that no adverse circumstance has been able to extinguish, is the most powerful sign that exists that you are being prepared for a level that goes far beyond what you yourself can visualize at this moment. Because chosen one is not a title you earn when the money shows up. Chosen one is what you are in the middle of scarcity, when you keep acting as though abundance is already inevitable. It is when you study even without seeing immediate results. It is when you plan even without having capital. It is when you declare even without having a testimony yet. That posture, that attitude of acting as if the miracle is already on its way, is not naivety. It is the only language the spiritual world recognizes as genuine faith. And it is exactly that faith that is beginning to disturb the people around you. Do you notice it? The more you act like someone who has a guaranteed financial destiny, the more the behavior of those trapped in mediocrity begins to shift in your direction. The comments appear, the looks come, the tone changes, and in a moment you will understand why this is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is the greatest thermometer that you are exactly on the right path. Because look at what nobody tells you about the journey toward prosperity. The first sign that you are leveling up does not appear in your bank account. It appears in the behavior of the people around you. And if you are not prepared to interpret that sign correctly, you may end up confusing confirmation with attack. You may end up interpreting as rejection what is actually recognition and pulling back at the exact moment you should be accelerating. When you begin moving toward the abundance that was reserved for you, something very specific happens in your environment. The people who never had the courage to dream as big as you dream begin to feel a discomfort they themselves cannot rationally explain. It is not anger. It is not hatred. It is something far deeper and far more revealing than that. It is the silent confrontation between the life they chose to live and the life you are choosing to build. And that confrontation generates a tension that needs to go somewhere. So it comes in the form of an ironic comment. It comes in the crooked smile when you talk about your plans. It comes in the voice that says, slow down, don't get carried away, you are deluding yourself. It comes in the silence of those who were rooting for you to stay in the same place because that justified their own staying. Chosen one, I need you to engrave this in the deepest part of your being. Envy is not an attack on who you are. Envy is a confession of who the other person failed to become. When someone looks at your persistence with discomfort, that person is telling you without words that your effort is exposing their laziness. When someone minimizes your dreams, that person is telling you that your courage is unmasking their fear. You are not the problem. You are the mirror. And there are people who cannot handle seeing themselves reflected in the determination of someone who refused to conform. Think about it. If you were stagnant, comfortable, complaining about life and doing nothing different, nobody would bother you. Nobody would waste energy commenting on your life. Nobody would feel threatened by your existence. Invisibility is the privilege of those who represent no level of threat to the status quo. But when you begin to study, to plan, to invest in your knowledge, to speak of abundance with conviction, to act like someone with a marked financial destiny, you become visible in a way that deeply disturbs others. And that visibility comes with a price. That price is called the judgment of others. And you will pay that price smiling because you have already understood what it represents. The envy you are receiving right now is proportional to the level you are about to reach. That is not a metaphor. That is a spiritual law that repeats itself in the life of every man and every woman who dared to step out of the ordinary and walk toward the prosperity that was promised. The greater the reaction from the environment, the greater the vibration of what is being attracted. The envious are, without realizing it, the prophets of your next chapter. Every negative comment is an involuntary declaration that the level you are reaching is large enough to be perceived before it has even fully manifested. And there is a detail that very few people understand about this dynamic. Envy rarely comes from strangers. It comes from close by. It comes from those who know your story, know where you came from, know what you have been through, and even so, or perhaps precisely because of that, refuse to believe you can reach where you are going. Because if you get there, and you will get there, it will demand an answer from them that they are not ready to give about their own choices. Your ascent is a mirror they do not want to face. So it is easier to try to dim your light than to turn on their own. But here's the turning point that changes everything for those who understand. You do not need to dim your light so that others can feel comfortable. You were not chosen for mediocrity out of compassion for others. You were chosen for abundance because there is a purpose behind your prosperity that goes beyond your own life. The wealth that is coming to you is not just for you. It is for the family you are going to lift up. It is for the people you are going to impact. It is for the legacy that will be remembered long after you are no longer here. And no envious comment, no crooked glance, no voice of doubt has enough authority to interrupt a purpose of that magnitude. So the next time you feel the weight of other people's judgment, the next time someone tries to reduce your dreams to the size of their limitations, I want you to feel that as confirmation. I want you internally, in the deepest place within you, to understand that you are being noticed by the right places and the wrong places at the same time, and that both types of attention are serving the same purpose, pushing you toward the level that has already been decreed over your life. Because the territory you are crossing right now is not for everyone. It is narrow, it is quiet, it is lonely at times. And it is precisely because so few people make it there that what awaits you on the other side is so extraordinary. And it is precisely in that narrow and lonely territory that most people decide to turn back. Not because they did not believe in the destiny, not because they did not have the dream, but because nobody warns you in advance about the real cost of crossing that space between who you were and who you are becoming. Nobody tells you that the path to genuine prosperity has a specific zone, a stretch of the journey, where the silence weighs heavy, where the results are slow to appear, and where faith needs to work without any external fuel. And it is exactly in that zone that the chosen ones separate themselves from the curious. Chosen. One, I am going to be completely direct with you now because you deserve this honesty. There is a price that very few people are willing to pay, and that price is not measured in money. It is measured in nights you stayed awake while the world slept. It is measured in the decisions you made alone, without anyone's validation, because the vision you carried did not fit in the minds of those around you. It is measured in the moments when you chose to study, when you could have been distracted, when you chose to plan, when you could have been complaining, when you chose to believe, when all the physical evidence pointed toward failure. That is the price of the next level, and you are already paying it, probably without realizing the size of what is being built in the spiritual while the physical has not yet caught up. Because there is a powerful truth that needs to be said here. God does not wait for the bank balance to start shaping a millionaire. He shapes the millionaire long before the money appears. He works on the character before he works on the capital. He strengthens the mindset before he moves the market. He forms the man or woman who will know how to carry wealth before he delivers the wealth itself. And the process of formation, that process you are living right now, happens exactly in this zone of pressure, in this uncomfortable territory where few have the courage to remain. Think of gold. Gold does not purify at room temperature. It needs fire. It needs a pressure and a heat that would be unbearable for any other material. But gold is not just any material, and you are not just any person. What is happening in your life right now, the pressure, the waiting, the tightness that seems to have no end, is not destroying who you are. It is eliminating what you cannot take to the next level. It is burning away the impurities of doubt, of fear, of the scarcity mindset that was deposited in you over the years by people who never experienced abundance and therefore taught limitation as though it were wisdom. And there is something very specific that happens in this territory that I need you to recognize when you feel it. The midnight hours of the chosen one carry a different weight. When the entire world has gone still, when social media has gone quiet, when there is nothing left to distract you, it is in that moment that you stand completely face to face with what you believe. And it is in that moment that faith either solidifies or dissolves. Those who reach extraordinary prosperity are the ones who learn to inhabit that silence without collapsing. They are the ones who learn to hear in that silence a voice that does not come from the external environment, but from an internal conviction that says what was promised cannot be taken away by any temporary circumstance. Because every circumstance you are facing right now is temporary. Every delay has an expiration date. Every pressure has a purpose that goes beyond what you can see in the moment it is happening. The problem is that most people measure the size of the promise by the size of the present problem, and when the problem seems too large, they conclude that the promise was a lie. But you will not do that, because you have already understood that the size of the opposition is always proportional to the size of the reward. And if what you are facing seems big, it is because what is reserved for you is even bigger. There is a moment in this territory that is the most critical of the entire journey. It is the moment just before the turning point. It is when the situation seems to have reached its hardest point, when the resistance is at its peak, when internally you begin to question whether it is worth continuing. And it is exactly at that moment that most people give up, one step away, one decision away, one day away from what would have changed everything. And the tragedy is not that they gave up. The tragedy is that they never knew how close they were. You will not be that person, because you are being warned right now in advance about what that moment means when it comes, or about what it means if it has already arrived. The resistance you are feeling is not a sign that you took the wrong path. It is a sign that you are so close to the door that what is on the other side is already reacting to your approach. And when the door is about to open, the entire environment seems to conspire to make you turn back before you reach for the handle. And it is about that door that I need to speak with you now, because what happens in the moments that precede its opening is so specific, so consistent, so repeatable in the life of every chosen one who reached the level they were destined for, that when you recognize what you are living as that pattern, you will never again confuse resistance with defeat. You will never again interpret turbulence as a sign that you went the wrong direction, because the most intense turbulence of the entire journey does not happen at the beginning. It happens when you are inches away from what was promised. Think about what happens with a rocket at the moment of launch. The point of greatest energy consumption, the point of greatest resistance, the point where everything seems on the verge of exploding, is not in the middle of the trajectory. It is at liftoff. It is exactly in the moment when it is breaking through gravity, moving from one plane to another, that the pressure reaches its maximum peak. And if the rocket pulled back at that moment because of the pressure, it would never reach space. It would never fulfill the purpose for which it was built. You are that rocket. And the pressure you are feeling right now is not evidence of structural failure. It is evidence that you are breaking through the gravity of a financial reality that was not made to contain you, but that will resist with everything it has before letting you go. Chosen one, let me describe what tends to happen in this phase, and I want you to pay very close attention, because it is likely that you are living this right now, or that you are about to. When the financial turnaround is near, the environment begins to react in ways that seem simultaneous and coordinated. People who were in your circle start to pull away without a clear reason. Relationships that seem stable begin to show cracks. Opportunities that seem certain start to stall at the last moment. Unexpected problems arise exactly when you are least equipped to deal with them. And all of this together creates a very specific feeling that something is wrong, that perhaps you made a mistake, that perhaps it is time to pull back and look for a safer path. But what is actually happening is not what it seems. What is happening is a separation, a spiritual curation of what can and what cannot enter the next chapter of your life. The people who are pulling away do not have the capacity to inhabit the level you are heading toward. The relationships that are cracking were not built to support the prosperous version of you. The opportunities that are stalling were not the right opportunities. They were simply the ones available at the level you were at. And all of this is being reorganized, not to harm you, but to ensure that when the turnaround happens, the environment around you is compatible with what is coming. Because there is a law that operates with absolute precision in the spiritual realm. You cannot carry into the next level what was built for the previous one. And when God is preparing you for extraordinary prosperity, He does not only prepare you on the inside, He prepares the environment around you. He removes what does not serve. He makes room for what is coming. And this process of removal, seen from the inside, looks like loss. It looks like abandonment. It looks like everything is falling apart at the same time. But seen from the outside, from a higher spiritual perspective, it is the greatest possible sign that the turnaround is not far away. It is the reorganization that precedes the manifestation. And there is a detail that is particularly cruel about this phase. I need to be honest with you about this. The difficulties that arise at this specific moment rarely look spiritual. They look practical. They look financial. They look relational. They arrive wearing the disguise of a common problem, of bad luck, of a rough patch. And it is precisely because of that that so many people fall into this trap and interpret what is spiritual resistance as personal failure. They begin to question themselves, to doubt their own ability, to revisit their own dreams as if the dreams were the problem, when in reality the problem is the nearness of the answer, not the absence of it. You need to develop a level of discernment that most people never develop because they never got this close. The discernment to recognize that the most intense attack comes when you are closest to the victory. The discernment to understand that God's silence in certain moments is not abandonment. It is confidence. It is the confidence of someone who has trained another person to the point of knowing that person can cross the final stretch alone, sustained by the faith that was built throughout the entire journey. And you have been trained. Every pressure you have survived was training for this moment. Every time you did not quit when you should have quit was a deposit made into the account of your spiritual endurance, and that account is now full enough to sustain you until the turnaround. So when you feel like everything is resisting at the same time, when you feel like the entire environment is conspiring against your advancement instead of pulling back, I want you to push forward with even more intention, because what is trying to stop you is confirming that you are moving. And what moves in the right direction with faith and consistency cannot be permanently blocked. It can be delayed, it can be tested, but it cannot be canceled. What has been decreed over your financial life has no expiration date and cannot be revoked by any earthly circumstance, by any envious person, by any moment of pressure, by any season of waiting, no matter how long it seems to last. And when you finally cross that stretch, when the door that was being blocked finally opens, you will understand with a clarity that only experience can give you why every second of resistance was necessary, because what is on the other side of that door cannot be received by someone who was not formed by the crossing. And you are being formed right now at this very moment to carry with maturity and with purpose the glorious weight of the abundance that is coming. And when that door opens, chosen one, what will be more evident than anything else is that the abundance that manifests in your life will not look like luck to those who truly know you. It will not look like chance. It will not seem as though you were randomly blessed out of nowhere by a fortune that could have fallen on anyone. It will look exactly like what it is, a harvest, a precise, proportional, and absolutely just harvest of everything that was planted in the seasons when nobody was watching, in the seasons when you were working in the dark, building in silence, cultivating in the spiritual what had not yet sprouted in the physical. Because there is a law that does not fail, that has never failed, that has no exceptions and no favoritism. The law of sowing and reaping operates with a precision that should intimidate the lazy and encourage with overwhelming force those who persist. You cannot plant faith and reap doubt. You cannot plant consistency and reap stagnation. You cannot plant vision, work, declaration, and daily construction week after week, month after month, and receive scarcity as the spiritual universe's response. That is an impossibility. It is not optimism. It is not positive thinking. It is law. It is structure. It is the way the kingdom operates, and the kingdom does not change its rules to work against you. What most people do not understand about prosperity is that it does not begin when the money shows up. It begins much earlier. It begins in the moment you decide, with a conviction that goes beyond reason, that scarcity is not your identity, that financial tightness is not your destiny, that lack does not define who you are or who you will become. That decision, that internal shift in posture is the first fruit of abundance. And from that point forward, everything you do, every study, every plan, every declaration, every hour invested, every conscious choice to act like someone who already knows where they are headed, all of it is seed being cast into fertile spiritual soil, awaiting the right time for manifestation. Chosen one, I want you to understand something that will completely change how you see the process you are living. The envious people who are observing you with discomfort cannot see the fruits that are already being generated. They look at your current financial life and conclude that nothing is happening, that you are deluding yourself, that your plans are fantasies. But what they do not have access to is the spiritual world where everything you are building already exists in complete form, awaiting only the perfect alignment of circumstances to manifest in the physical realm. They are judging the seed by its size, without understanding that the size of the seed has absolutely no relation to the size of the tree it carries within itself. And something even more powerful is happening that goes beyond what you yourself perceive in daily life. Every time you choose to persist when human logic would say to stop, you are making a move that reverberates far beyond your bank account. You are breaking generational patterns. You are rewriting a narrative that may have repeated itself in your family for decades. You are proving with your own life that financial limitation is not a mandatory inheritance, that scarcity is not a family destiny, that there is a generation that decides at some point to say enough to the cycle and begin to build something different. And that generation is you. That moment is now. And the weight of that is far greater than any number that could appear on your bank statement. That is why the prosperity that is coming to you is not superficial. It is not a temporary relief from a difficult season. It is a structural transformation that will impact not only your life, but everything and everyone connected to you. And when something of that magnitude is being prepared, the preparation process needs to be equal to it. You cannot receive extraordinary level prosperity with an ordinary level mindset. And it is precisely because of that everything you are going through right now is shaping not only your financial situation, but your character, your vision, your capacity for management, your spiritual maturity, because the abundance that is on its way needs to find someone who knows what to do with it, who will not waste it, who will not get lost in it, who will use it with wisdom and with purpose. And do you know what is most extraordinary about this entire story? The financial miracle you are waiting for has already begun. It did not begin when you saw the first result. It began when you made the first decision not to quit. It began when you studied for the first time without being certain it would make a difference. It began when you declared for the first time without having any physical evidence to support what you were declaring. It began when you chose to believe that there was a level beyond what your eyes could see. Each one of those moments was the beginning of a process that is now in its final phase, and the conclusion of that process has a name, has an address, and has a date marked on the spiritual calendar that cannot be altered by any human force. The fruits the envious cannot see already exist. The prosperity they think is an illusion is already confirmed. The level they think you will never reach is already reserved. And the most ironic thing of all is that when the manifestation happens, when what was in the spiritual finally reveals itself in the physical in a way that no one will be able to deny or ignore, it will be exactly those people who will want to come close to understand how it happened. And the answer will be simple. It will be the same answer it has always been: persistence, consistency, faith that did not yield to pressure, and a posture of chosen one maintained with dignity during every second of the process, especially in the moments when maintaining that posture cost more than anything else. Because abundance does not respond to desperation. It does not respond to anxiety. It does not respond to those who act in contradictory ways, believing one moment and doubting the next. Abundance responds to those who establish a constant frequency of faith and action and maintain that frequency regardless of what the external environment presents as an obstacle. And you have been doing that. You have been maintaining that frequency even when it was difficult, even when it cost you, even when nobody was watching. And that is exactly what will make all the difference when the harvest arrives.